Welcome, seeker of forgotten rhythms. You did not arrive here by accident. Something ancient within you has been listening, waiting, remembering. Before we begin, I invite you to slow your breath, still your thoughts, and open not your mind, but your body. For what you're about to read is not just a story, it is a return to the language your bones have always known. Part 1. The Whisper Beneath the Spine. What if I told you that the secret to unlocking unseen worlds has been sitting silently at the base of your spine all along? Not in your thoughts, not in the dreams you've chased, not even in the mantras you've repeated, but in a bone. A single, ancient, unmoving, yet living piece of you. The Sacrum. Let me begin with a story, not of someone else, but of a whisper that began inside me. It wasn't loud. It didn't arrive like thunder or revelation. It came quietly, like the weight of moonlight on water. For years I had sought truth, in books, in temples, in teachings. I had meditated for hours, stilled my breath, silenced my thoughts, and yet something always felt out of reach, as if the thing I was searching for wasn't outside nor inside, but beneath. Until one night, deep in a desert far from cities and sound, I danced, not to music, not for joy, not for beauty. My body moved as if remembering something older than thought. My hips began to draw invisible spirals in the air. My spine followed, wave after wave, and in that moment I felt it. A quiet ignition, like a sacred ember glowing deep inside the cradle of my bones. That was the first time I met the sacrum, not as a word from anatomy, but as a gatekeeper of memory. It didn't speak, but it pulsed. It didn't promise, but it revealed. I knew then that the body was never meant to be escaped. It was meant to be entered, lived, and remembered. Ancient people, those who danced under eclipses and carved spirals into stone, they knew this. They didn't explain it. They moved it. They felt it. And in their movements, something beyond reason awoke. This story I now tell is not mine alone. It belongs to you too. If you listen, if you feel, if you're willing to let your body speak again. Because within you, at this very moment, lies a forgotten altar. Not in the heavens, but in your own spine. And when it moves, the world moves with you. Let us begin. Part 2, the bone that remembers. They called it the throne of the soul. Not in words we know today, but in gestures, in dances, in spirals traced in sand beneath stars that no longer rise. This bone, the sacrum, was not merely anatomical to them. It was a sacred artifact, a relic, not of the past, but of the original design of being human. It wasn't studied, it was revered. Across continents and centuries, those who remembered how to move with the earth instead of above it all bowed to this unseen anchor. In Africa, the old ones danced in spirals, their feet drawing rhythms that no drum could mimic. Their hips would circle in slow waves, calling forth heat from the ground, shaking loose stories buried beneath bone. They didn't call it meditation. They didn't call it prayer. They just moved. And in their movement, the world thinned. In Mesoamerica, warriors and dreamers practiced a form of devotion through the body. They believed that certain movements, performed with intent, breath, and rhythm, could awaken something not just in the muscles, but in the soul. A code, a forgotten vibration that still lives in all of us. They didn't need modern anatomy. They knew, by feel, that the base of the spine was the original drum, the place where life first begins to hum. Even in ancient Egypt, resurrection wasn't just a myth or belief. It was a technology of the soul. They aligned the spine with the stars and believed that the sacrum held the power to lift the spirit back into form. Their jed pillar, etched on tombs and walls, mirrored the human spine, and it all began at the base. What were they trying to tell us? Why did so many of these ancient people, separated by land and language, all return to the same point, the sacrum, as if they remembered something we've forgotten? Because the body remembers what the mind forgets. The sacrum is shaped like a triangle, firm and unmoving, yet deep within it hums a dormant rhythm. Its very name, sacrum, means sacred. And isn't it strange that something so sacred was buried so low, hidden, almost ignored? But nothing is accidental in the architecture of the soul. The deepest truths are always hidden in plain sight. When you begin to move from this place, with awareness, not effort, something inside you stirs. At first, it feels subtle, like warmth under cold skin, then a tingling, then a sense of something turning, like a wheel slowly waking up. And if you stay with it, not forcing, not analyzing, just staying, the vibration begins to rise. like smoke from a slow fire, like a memory you didn't know you lost. This is why the ancients didn't talk much, because this kind of remembering has no language. It doesn't need grammar. The body speaks in sensation, and the sacrum, the throne, is its whisper. Part 3, the dance that awakens. There is a moment in this journey when the body begins to remember without words. It doesn't come suddenly. It arrives like mist, gently curling around the bones, whispering its presence. It begins with breath, not forced, not measured, just noticed. Then with a sway, barely perceptible, the pelvis moves. Not as a dance for the eyes, but a spiral for the soul. You don't need to understand it, you need to feel it. Close your eyes and imagine drawing soft circles with your hips, not large, not rigid. Imagine water moving within you, warm and unhurried. The sacrum follows. At first it may feel still, like a stone at the ocean floor, but with each spiral, each exhale, each gentle rhythm, something stirs. The ancients knew this wasn't exercise, it was invocation. Each spiral a calling, each breath a response. And slowly a strange thing begins to happen. The world around you starts to shift, not with drama, not with magic, but subtly. Your thoughts lose their sharpness. Time loses its grip. You are no longer in a room, in a country, in a name. You are in a field of vibration. Your breath slows without trying. Your spine feels taller without effort. Your awareness becomes liquid, spreading, touching the edges of things you never noticed before. You begin to feel space, not as emptiness, but as presence. And if you continue, letting the movement remain soft and sincere, something deeper awakens. Not a hallucination, not a fantasy, but a return. A reunion with the part of you that never forgot how to feel alive. Some describe a warmth as if a candle has been lit deep inside the pelvis. Others feel tingling in their hands or a glowing at the base of their skull. A few begin to hear faint tones, high, soft frequencies like singing bowls echoing from within. And then there are moments, brief but unforgettable, when the edge between this world and the next softens. When you see light behind closed eyes. When you feel watched, not in fear, but in deep presence. When memories arise not from this lifetime, but from somewhere the body has kept safe, waiting. This is not imagination, it is remembrance. And the body is the instrument. The sacrum is no longer just a bone, it is the drummer, and your movement, when done with reverence, becomes a ceremony. Part 4, the threshold. There is a wordless place the ancients called the threshold. It was not a location on a map, but a shift in the rhythm of reality, a place not marked by steps but by sensation. It was the moment when the dancer no longer moved the body, but the body moved the dancer. You begin to feel it when you are no longer trying, when effort disappears and awareness deepens. The sacrum, once just a heavy stone, now becomes a humming drum. Its vibration moves upward, tracing the spine like a silent chant. You don't hear it with your ears, but with your skin. The inside of you listens. And then something gives way. A curtain that was never visible is suddenly gone. You begin to perceive more, not by thinking, but by being. Shapes behind closed eyes, light that doesn't come from outside. Time feels like honey, thick, slow, golden. You are not dreaming. You are arriving. This is the threshold, the in-between, where the logical mind cannot lead and only presence can pass through. In this place, symbols become alive. Breath becomes language. Movement becomes knowing. You may feel a presence, not a being outside you, but something ancient within you awakening. A watcher, a keeper, the original self. Some call it the soul, others the essence. But names don't matter here. What matters is that something remembers you, even if you have forgotten it. And from this state, visions often come. Not hallucinations, but living messages. Some see spirals, flowing geometries, or old eyes in infinite space. Others feel waves of love or truth or grief that has no story, only presence. You are not imagining, you are receiving. But this doorway does not open to comfort alone. Sometimes it opens to old pain, fear, sadness, memories you buried under years of forgetting. And this too is part of the gift. Because in this space, nothing is here to harm you. It rises only to be released. That is why the ancients were cautious. They knew that awakening is not always gentle. The light reveals everything, including the shadows. But they also knew that the body never opens more than you're ready to feel. That the sacrum will only sing when it knows you are listening. So they prepared. They grounded their bodies like trees before reaching for the sky. They created rituals, circles, songs, fires, sacred places, not because the spirit needed it, but because the body needed it to feel safe. And here lies the true wisdom. You don't rise by escaping, you rise by sinking, by entering fully, by listening until the bones remember. The threshold is not a goal, it's a returning to who you were before forgetting. Part 5. Sacred Motion in Daily Life. What if I told you that the sacred doesn't live only in temples or mountains, but in your living room, your kitchen, your breath while waiting for the kettle to boil? What if remembering who you are doesn't require isolation in forests or silence in caves, but simply presence in motion? The ancients didn't need retreats. The forest was around them, the fire was their center, and their bodies, that was the altar. You don't need to leave your life, you need to meet it from the sacrum. Here are 5 ways to return to yourself each day, through subtle rituals rooted not in mysticism, but in memory. 1. The morning circle, 7 minutes of devotion. Before the world speaks to you, speak to your body. As you rise, find a quiet corner. Sit or stand with a straight spine. Place your awareness at the base. Inhale into your sacrum. Then begin soft, flowing circular movements of the hips. Small spirals, like drawing energy from the earth. Let this be your daily remembering, your moment of arrival. 2. The walking pulse. Turn every step into a sacred beat. As you walk to the shop, to the office, through the park, bring your awareness to how the sacrum moves. Feel each step like a vibration traveling from foot to spine. Let your pace be slow, deliberate. Picture your feet tracing invisible mandalas into the ground. Suddenly, even a mundane sidewalk becomes a prayer path. 3. The sound awakening. Put on ancestral rhythms, shamanic drums, tribal chants, earthy tones. Let your body respond without choreography. The hips begin to move, the sacrum answers. There's no performance, just listening. The body knows, and once you trust it, it starts to speak louder. These songs weren't made for entertainment, they are maps. 4. Pre-ritual centering. Before a meeting, a difficult conversation, a performance, take 5 minutes. Go somewhere private. Close your eyes, circle your hips slowly. Let your sacrum anchor your presence. You don't need to think your way into power. You need to feel your way back to center. 5. The moving meditation. If your mind resists stillness, meet it with movement. Let the sacrum guide a meditation in motion. 10 minutes of conscious circling can bring you deeper than an hour of silent sitting. Some bodies speak more fluently through motion than through silence. Honor your dialect. These are not exercises, they are conversations with the temple you live in. And the more you listen, the more it remembers. Every breath, every sway, every spiral is not an escape from life, but a re-entry into the sacred center that never left. Part 6. The intelligence beneath. The body is not a passive shell. It listens, it stores, it decides when to whisper and when to roar. And the sacrum, though solid as stone, is no exception. It is not merely bone, it is memory shaped into matter. Science speaks of the nervous system, of the vagus nerve, of stored trauma in the fascia. But long before these terms, the ancients already knew. The body feels everything and remembers what the mind discards, especially through the spine. The sacrum, nestled at the base, is like a keeper of primal knowledge. It receives vibrations from the earth and carries them upward like secret messages. When you begin to move this area, you awaken not only energy, but data your conscious mind never accessed. Ancient grief, forgotten joy, the first moment you ever felt safe, the first time you closed yourself. These are not thoughts. These are sensations that rise like waves when you spiral the base. This is why people cry during slow hip circles, or suddenly feel joy without reason. Why their breath deepens and their heart rate shifts. The sacrum is plugged into a layer of you that still speaks the language of instinct. In this space, logic falls away. You don't need to know why something hurts to release it. You don't need to analyze the shape of your pain. You just need to move. To trust that the body holds not only wounds, but the keys. The spine is not just architecture. It is a ladder. Every vertebra holds memory. Every segment pulses with a rhythm of its own. And when the sacrum starts the song, the rest of the body follows. Shoulders drop, eyes soften, the jaw loosens, and in the quiet of your being, something speaks. I remember. Not through language, but through sensation, through shivers, through goosebumps, through the stillness that comes after movement. True healing, then, is not always a grand epiphany. Sometimes it's a breath you didn't know you were holding finally released, a sigh that escapes without thought, a tear that doesn't explain itself. This is the body doing its sacred work. You are not broken, you are layered, and each spiral unwinds a little more of what was never yours to carry. The sacrum is not the end of the spine, it's the root. And from the root, everything grows. Part 7. The body as a sacred map. You were never given a guidebook at birth. No one handed you a scroll with the truth of who you are. But the map has always been with you, etched in bone, carved into your breath, hidden within your posture. Your body is that map, and the sacrum is where the legend begins. Imagine for a moment that every part of your body is a symbol, a sign, a portal. Your hands, tools of creation. Your feet, messengers of direction. Your spine, a bridge between realms. And your sacrum, the compass. Not the kind that points north, but the kind that points inward. When the ancients moved, they weren't exercising, they were reading. Every step in the sand, every spiral in the hips, every gesture in the air was a word in a language too old for sound. Movement was scripture, stillness was punctuation, the body was the sacred text. So many of us are searching for clarity, for purpose, for healing. But the paradox is, the very vehicle we use to search has been holding the answers all along. We scroll endlessly. We chase teachers, but the teacher has always been inside. In the ache of your back, the tension in your jaw, the breath you forgot to take. The sacrum doesn't speak in commands, it speaks in nudges, a twitch, a pull, a warmth, a sudden tear without thought. When you begin to move with presence, these signs begin to clarify, like constellations appearing in a night sky you never thought to look at. The hips, when they circle, unlock doors not just of energy, but of meaning. Why you walked away, why you stayed silent, why your body tightened when a voice was raised. These answers don't arrive in words, they arrive in release. That's why rituals matter. Not because they are magic, but because they focus you, because they teach you how to listen again. A circle of movement around the sacrum is not a spell, it's a sentence, a phrase in the body's forgotten grammar. And when you practice this daily, not as a task, but as a devotion, the map becomes clear. You begin to feel your body not as flesh and function, but as language, sacred language. And in this language, the body doesn't lie. It says, here is what you carry. It says, here is what you forgot. It says, here is how to return. Every tension, every ache, every exhale is not random. It's a signpost. And once you begin to read your body like scripture, you no longer need to search so far. The map has always been inside. You just needed to turn toward it. Part 8. When symbols speak. There comes a moment, subtle yet undeniable, when movement crosses the threshold of the physical and enters the mythic. You begin to see things, not with your eyes, but with that ancient gaze buried inside the bones. Shapes, lights, sounds that come from nowhere, and yet feel more real than the room you're standing in. These aren't hallucinations, they are remembrances. Symbols rising not to confuse, but to guide. They carry no captions. No definitions, but your body knows. Your breath shifts, your skin listens. A spiral of gold behind closed eyes, a flash of blue like lightning across your spine, a hum that doesn't stop even when the music ends. You feel watched, not judged, but witnessed. The presence is not foreign, it is you, remembering yourself. In many ancient traditions, these inner visions were not anomalies, they were expected. Dancers in temple ceremonies spoke of seeing serpents of light, ancient trees inside their chest, circles of fire floating in their breath. They never tried to explain it. They danced with it. This is what happens when the sacrum opens. It becomes a drum of transmission. Each movement awakens not just energy, but archetypes. Symbols that don't speak to your brain, they speak to your soul. And when the soul hears its own language, it begins to return home. What you see inside is not random. The triangle, the spiral, the eye, the serpent. The flame, these are not fantasies, they are living codes. And like any code, they must be lived, not just interpreted. The spiral, for example, might rise in your vision, and suddenly you'll find yourself drawn to spiral into your day, in your breath, your movement, your decisions. The symbol teaches by becoming you. And some symbols won't appear as images, but as felt presence. A lightness in your chest, a heaviness in your hips, a heat in your palms. These too are messages. The body is the temple, but it's also the altar, where divine communication happens through sensation. To receive these symbols, you don't need to concentrate. You need to soften. The harder you try, the quieter they become. But when you surrender, when you let the movement be the prayer, they speak. And when they do, don't rush to interpret. Just feel. Just honor. Let the meaning arrive like a sunrise, slowly, gently, on its own terms. This is a new literacy, not of words, but of vibration. And the more you read this language, the more you remember, you were never alone. You were always being guided. You just forgot the alphabet. Now through your sacrum, the forgotten language speaks again. Part 9. Becoming the portal. There is a moment on the path when the seeker vanishes. The one who danced, who listened, who tried to awaken, becomes something else. Not enlightened, not ascended, but dissolved. Dissolved into rhythm, into breath, into the soft pulse of the sacrum that no longer vibrates for results, but simply for truth. You no longer ask, what does this mean? Or am I doing it right? Because you are no longer doing, you are being. You become the drum, not just the dancer, the wind, not just the prayer, the movement, not just the mover. The body is no longer a tool, it is the teaching, the temple, the transmission. And from this place, something rare happens. You stop chasing states, you stop seeking visions, because you begin to realize everything that matters is already here. In the tilt of your hips, in the space between breaths, in the way your sacrum hums like a distant sun inside your pelvis. This is when the portal appears, not outside you, not in some ancient place, but as you. You become the opening, the space where the sacred and the human meet. People around you may notice something, not your glow, not your knowledge, but your presence. You no longer react, you respond, you no longer grasp, you offer, and it's not because you practiced more, it's because you became what you once tried to reach. This is the silent turning. The moment you realize you are not here to escape the world, you are here to become the bridge between worlds. And your body, especially your sacrum, is not a weight to carry, but a frequency to remember. Now when you move, the earth listens. When you breathe, your ancestors sigh with you. When you sit in silence, it is not empty. It is full of rhythm, echoes, memory, and light. The practice ends, but the vibration remains. Because you have stopped performing the ritual, you have become it.